And next up, I'm happy to welcome Jelena Brajkovic. I hope I pronounce your name right. Where are you joining us today from?
Yes, Jonas, you pronounced it right. Brajkovic is. I'm speaking from Serbia. I mean, I'm currently in Vienna, but we'll be speaking on behalf of Faculty of Architecture, University of Belgrade. Yes,
great. And Jelena is going to present now today about the working group 5 with the topic scale jumping. And she herself is an architect and research associate with the main research in new media architecture and environments. And I welcome you to start your presentation.
Thank you. You see my screen, right?
Yes.
Okay, so as you announced me, I am, and as I said myself, I will be speaking in front of the University of Belgrade, Faculty of Architecture, and inside of this cost restore, I have been participating as VG5 Vice Leader, STSM and ITC Coordinator, also Open Access Grant Coordinator, for applications from our network and even external from the network. I will be also presenting these tools later, as they are very important. How to say section of our action, which gave results that we further published and disseminated through our website and our working groups. So, working group 5 is the last and concluding working group of Restore. So, of course, as our, let's say, subtopic or as our focus was actually going into the future and what next, and actually how to wrap up everything that was concluded and everything that was done by previous Restore working groups, of which, of course, different focuses and results you heard from other VG leaders. So our topic was actually scale jumping, and I will come back to what we are thinking when we say scale jumping, and something that we wanted to emphasize and actually brought into the discourse of regenerative sustainability. That is, of course, regenerative systems thinking, and how can we and what do we have in 21st century to actually think about in order to achieve sustainable environments that are good for people, good for nature, and good for the overall, let's say, experience of all stakeholders within the built environment. So systems thinking and scale jumping, but through which let's say subtopics. We of course first analyzed interactions, then we went to tools, platforms, and metrics. My presentation is more going to be just an overview of the working group, its organization, its main activities, and the results which are presented in the book. You can actually listen you can actually learn about them if you download the book, which is soon to be out, as it is yet in publishing phase. So VG5 working group 5 of Restore is also specific in one aspect, let's say, and that is that we started working when also pandemics started. So we just started one month before the pandemic hit. So we had, let's say, a lot of new questions to address, and there were many interesting topics that have aroused from new conditions that pandemics brought to us. So some of these issues have been addressed in our publication, and also through some of the STSMs, of which some are ongoing and some are already finished. So the overall mission of the working group 5 is to explore scale jumping potentials for neighborhood, city, and society-wide level regenerative sustainability, including analysis, solutions, and implementation. So we wanted to address to all and to give an overall overview of the whole how to say state of the art in the regenerative discourse, so that if you want something more in detail, you can go to other publications of working groups of Restore. So when we talk scale jumping, we didn't only address to it as in size. Of course, in size, upscale area and upscale reach, we also dealt with the quality. How can we actually upscale research potentials, market potentials, or even the networks? It is very important. What we also emphasized in the work of HG5 is this, of course, multidisciplinary approach, absolutely relying on different disciplines merging in finding solutions that are actually not good only from one angle, but from any angle that actually we can foresee through this interdisciplinary collaboration. And we had more than 80 people collaborating, of which some were from the practice, some were from the academia, and with very, very different backgrounds, which relate, of course, to regenerative topics. Our subtasks and our subgroups worked through a very through a defined frame, which then became chapters in our book, and you can see them here listed, and I will come back to this when I will also present, of course, this structure of our research. So for the main outcomes as working group, we are having a booklet which will be out, and I of course invite you all to download it when it is out on the RISO website. We have one sustainability special issue dedicated to the working group 5, in which again you can find different journal articles relating to different topics that we imposed. You can see these topics, I guess, on my screen. So it goes from all the patterns that probably Martin already mentioned: education, humans, components, buildings, different just of course elements, and of course we had short-term scientific missions, which became also one of our main let's say activities and outcomes, as of course any other physical meetings were not possible, but STSMs were still possible to run physically, even in pandemics, and I'm currently attending one in Vienna. So this is something that we have even different 10 short-term scientific missions supporting the goals of VG5, and I will again come back to topic of this. We had, of course, organized training school. It was held in Vienna in September, and we addressed through a practical exercise everything that we have been talking about before. And this was also held in hybrid mode, which is again something that is new, but it became out of it a conference, and we gathered very nice results from the trainees, which again you can find in a chapter dedicated to training school in our booklet, which is to be published. As main editors, Andras Wright and myself as VG5 leader and vice leader, and this guidebook can be really used from different practitioners of regenerative design. So depending on your area of research or practice, you can find for sure information that would help you with your practice. So first we gave an introduction to systems thinking within the built environment. So systems thinking came from the areas of mathematics, physics, it's from natural sciences, it's applied more, and this kind of logical thinking and even some very rigid rules that we can find around systems thinking theories, we try to translate them into a built environment context, and this specific section was actually wrote by physicists. So it made a nice introduction to all the other things that were mentioned in the book and in our work. So after this gentle introduction to systems thinking within the built environment, we analyzed, of course, first these interactions within this, let's say, triangular nexus, where of course we have human, we have nature, and we have built environment as something in between. But certainly also, how to say, we can look at the built environment and part between the human and nature, but also it is how to say, completely separate element that we just wanted to analyze all the bidirectional influences between the three, and of course everything in between, like human and built environment and nature built environment interactions, and then the whole system. After this more let's say after this part, we went into implementation Well, we found tools, platforms, and metrics. You can see the different focus. Of course, digital tools, smart technologies emerging. Then, of course, design frameworks. One very important topic, sometimes even neglected, maybe. And of course, legislation, which we approached through analyzing EU policy documents for green transition. I will come back to tell a few more words about each of these. And of course, this practical exercise, as I mentioned, Vienna, and of course a holistic vision for the urban renewal of Brigitaplatz, Hanover Markt. So we had a very specific case study, we had a very specific location, and we tried to blend approaches and findings from a previous research into actually proposing a holistic vision for urban renewal. I will also come back to this. So just to give one very, let's say, one very short introduction in some main points of our future directions. Of course, we have this human nature built environment nexus that we said, and in this within this we were talking about scale jumping. And what does this all mean? So we cannot, of course, neglect the rise of technologies and their review and the analysis of their potentials are actually embedded in many parts that we brought to light in our research. So from the beginning. And overall, if you look in past, if you look in future, built environment has always been connected to the, of course, a rise of new tech and media, and each new media actually shaped the architectural discourse and the built environment in a specific way. So, for example, with printing media, we got standardization of design, and suddenly we were able to produce a large number of identical architectural drawings everywhere around the world. So this was a start to change the design and the let's say images, architectural images that were circulating. Then in industrial evolution, of course, gave us standardized production and manufacturing, which of course led to something which Mario Capo calls standardized visual outputs and standardized visual environments. So now you have blocks, you have districts that are made of, let's say, similar expression in both form and different aspects of architectural design. So we got this standardized visual outputs and production and manufacturing with the rise of digital and new media. And new media is a term which is broader than digital, of course, media, although digital media is let's say the core of it, but new media also as a term actually has in itself some layers of also culture, information technologies, let's say principles. So when we talk digital and new media, they of course brought into the built environment discourse a stage and let's say principles and paradigm of non-standard, of course, technologies, variability, different kind of, let's say, emerging directions, multiple theories, organic forms, customization, interactivity, and digitally supported participative design. So now we have something which are open-end processes. Now we talk about behavior of the system, which is something again arise from information sciences and similar things. So this is something that we deal with, and of course one of main things that we have to take in account is this connectivity. So we are, of course, in a stage where society is less determined by objects and increasingly shaped by connectivity. And with these networks and high-tech environments, of course, we enter again a stadium when no longer binary opposition between town and country, urban and rural exists. So we can now play with these categories, and we can reinvent the future, of course, of our built environments. And I would quote Roy Ascott, who calls connectedness even a new principle of life, an evolutionary stage in human development. Also, let's say he calls this as a new skill for survival. So this is something that okay, we can think about, and we should try to deal with this in a proper way, still respecting and still having some let's say relationship to nature and our human biological, of course, needs. And this is something that we have to carefully curate, as of course this advancement of technology is usually understood as something artificial and opposite of nature, something which is distracting us and from nature. But can we actually think about this from another angle? Can we actually use technologies to go back to nature, of course, in an appropriate way? And is this nature maybe something we can call neo-nature, or nature the second, or nature after the rise of let's say digital technologies, or let's say artificially supported processes of some kind in our built environments? So this is just something to think about, and the approach that sounds proper for moderating the advancement of technologies and still staying connected to nature and having how to say healthy and environments that are good for well-being is of course something that we can do. And here I just wanted to quote Studio Drift. You probably know their work. They're trying to blend let's say technologies, media, and of course nature, and they have these points that are very open to further research, and that is how to actually live more simple with support of technologies. How can we actually sync nature, humankind, and technology through something which we can call a sustainable, technologically supported, reconnected future. So this is possible. We just have to, of course, rearrange, remodel the way we use technologies. Of course, some bad things that came out of it, like always being connected and this, let's say, overwhelming with information. So all of this can be actually rethought, let's say like that, in future. So what can help us in this process is of course a biophilic design. I guess many of you are familiar with this topic, and biophilic design is actually trying to help us to maintain and to nurture our innate affiliation to nature, our innate love of nature, and we need nature to feel good. Everybody wants a nice view from their windows. Nobody wants to look at a wall or just concrete, of course, and things like that. I'm not going to explain. There are some very simple, attributes, like of course presence of natural elements in built environments. Of course, air, sunlight, plants, animals. There are some other more let's say elements leaning towards the design. There are some psychological implications, like these evolved human-nature relationships where we need security and protection, mystery and mastery and control, affection and attachment. How to actually have all this in our design. And something also very important is place-based relationships, where we also have to, of course, respect all cultural layers or historic layers of places. And when we build our architecture, nurturing this is always something which people sense. Also, one of the tasks of biophilic design is to avoid placelessness and to achieve something which we call spirit of place. So biophilic design, of course, many available literature, and more coming into discourse as something which can help us a lot with creating this sense of place and actually feel good architecture, which is nurturing well-being and mental and some cognitive functions. There are many, of course. There are many research on this, which kind of elements induce which kind of mental state, and of course mood and everything else, physiological, mental, let's say, state of people. So after this very broad introduction, I will come back to what we've done, just to again remind you of it. I'm still in time, so it is okay. Human nature built environment, this nexus, we actually analyzed through different patterns, where we have human design, place and space, nature, energy, materials, education. It is, of course, very hard to actually really look through each of these patterns holistically, but we provide something which we call scale jumping interventions in conclusion, and something which actually became a publication of its own, and let's say our outcome of its own. It is the Restored 2030, or one of our, again, toolbox, a guidebook for different kind of actually education seminars that you can use in bringing actually everything that Restore has come up with. And actually it is an exercise in what if really cities would actually engage all these elements that we proposed. So this publication is also going to be available, so also you can download it and contact any of persons who worked on this booklet and on this guidebook, this toolkit that you can actually really use for organizing seminars or any kind of educational programs, almost at any level of education. Human-built environment interactions. Of course, we have different, let's say, highlights in this area. So you have you can read about interactions relating to human-built environment. Then a case study. How can we scale up district level, like refurbishment? This is something which is, of course, very important for many of European cities that can only deal with refurbishment actually if they want to achieve some new parameters in some very already how to say set up conditions. Health and built environment, of course, assessment tools and similar highlights. Then in our nature built environment interactions, again, one play with the scale, and that is how can we actually have small urban hacks but create a big impact, or can we tackle major urban challenges through acupunctural smallness? So here you can read about very fruitful discussions on some very specific case studies around Europe and even more. So that would be from the interaction point of view for digital tools for supporting regenerative district and scale jumping. You already, I think, heard a lot about these topics. So here you can just see the main areas that we tackled: optimization, of course, digitally linked domains, and this is all, again, I'm saying, tackling with technologies in terms that they are tools, not media, but tools for design. Then something that we can also say that it is dealing actually with mediation. It's actually smart technologies which actually provide us data, which actually make us maybe design differently. So here we have, of course, Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, and this, let's say, distributed intelligence and distributed thinking. So before, again, we were thinking that humans are, let's say, autonomous and maybe above all the other elements of nature and also the built environment. But here, with the help of artificial intelligence, we actually create something which is called the distributed cognitive environments, where we decide together with technologies about what is best for us and for other elements of built environments. So in emergent technologies, some more, let's say, constructional again point of view. We have here different emerging technologies presented, some interesting, of course, propositions like 3D printed even habitats and similar things. So if you are interested in this, it would be useful for you. And then, of course, some different digital frameworks that we worked with, and that some of them became, and of course, assessed their let's say, their good or bad terms in different contexts, and of course these EU policy documents where you can read about and the critique of them, analysis of all of these kinds of legislation. So for, as I said, practical exercise, we had a training school called the Good Urban Life, where we had, as you can see, numbers, very fruitful, let's say, crew working on this. So we were working on urban renewal of an existing neighborhood through trying to address all social and cultural relations, circular consideration, and biophilic attributes. Here you can see that we had experts from each of these disciplines, and the results were very satisfying and ready for further analysis. My last slide would be about short-term scientific missions, where we had different, where you can see just the names of them and the highlights that they're dealt with. So we have very wide topics, from holistic urban living through life cycle assessments, then envelopes, then energy efficiency, smart cities approach. Everything that I presented is here through very different aspects, and we do expect a lot of results that we can actually build our further research on. So thank you for your attention, and I hope you will address and download our publication when it is online on Restore website.
Thank you so much, Jelena. I think we've gotten quite a couple of new insights now over these 20 minutes that you presented here, and I'm glad that you were able to join us today. I hope maybe we can have you back in some weeks or months and present the Restored to the local initiative here in Malmö, LFM 30, that is going to also be presented in the afternoon. I think there are lots of synergies between the project and between Restored, and I think it would be great to get to know a little bit more about each other and continue this work. So thanks again.
Thank you.